And it is so easy to think of it as a person, isn't it? Because ChatGPT is so friendly and polite. Okay, so lots to talk about, lots to think about during the break. But right now I'm going to hand over to Adriana, who will introduce herself. And on the round table today, talking about evaluation, she has two experts from the British Council and from France Éducation Internationale. Over to you.
Thank you, George. Well, so I'm Adriana Colosio, I work for the British Council and I'm the Director of Exams at the British Council for France, Italy, Croatia, Slovenia. Okay. There you go, it's me, confirmed. And I have the pleasure today to facilitate this panel, but they are the stars here today, in fact. Vincent Pony, responsible for innovation in the Department of Evaluation for France Éducation Internationale, and my colleague Radosveta, Valkova, I'm so sorry. Radosveta Valkova, Innovation, it's a very beautiful title, I guess. Wonderful. Yes, it's Innovation Manager, and she's a researcher in the area of assessment. Both of them will be bringing their perspectives of AI in assessment today for us. So, over to you. Yeah? So, Vincent, would you like to start? Yeah? So, the structure is basically just for you to know. Vincent will have between 10-15 minutes, and then Rados another 10-15 minutes, and we are opening for questions afterwards, okay? I will probably have some questions, but the audience is our priority, so be ready to share your thoughts, ask questions, comments after some time, okay? Vincent.
Yes, I have a presentation to share with you.
Yes.
Okay. Just before to start, you have to bear in mind that my field, it's a very boring field. I'm a very boring people, you know. I'm working with assessment and measurement. Assessment literacy is very low in France, probably very low in Europe. You have big people speaking with a big voice about assessment all the day. You have the parents, for example. Everybody have an opinion about assessment, but the issue it's really very, very technical and very ethical. So I'm sorry, but when you want to take the floor, you have to know. Please, if you're speaking about machine learning, do you have the knowledge to do that? Are you so arrogant? Okay? So, I just want to make it very clear, because in my field, we are taking bad decisions every day. We are just probably the bad guys of the story and bad women of the story. It's very difficult to deal with what we are doing. So basically, what is about our job? Our job is to give a CFO level. For what? To help people with their mobility. What we called 10 years ago the international mobility, now it seems that we refit things and we're speaking about migration. The migrant is the new student, you know? Interesting. So you're making decisions that are very important for people. You're making the life of the people very different. You have to select people to go to Canada, to France, to Quebec for studies, and you're changing life of many people. It's not working?
No.
She will move it.
So the context of this project, this study, was the automation of the TCF rating for writing skill and the use of AI to develop a tool. It was a collaboration with the University of Louvain, and it's a creation of a new rating procedure to improve the writer experience and satisfaction with the automation. Why do we decide to go with that? Because we have a good knowledge about humans and writers. And we know that as humans, we are making a lot of errors. And we are making errors, making decisions on people. So our main issue is to find a way to improve the reliability of our exams, taking into account that an assessment is always a human thing. It cannot be another topic. I don't know for you, but in my case, in my daily life, I'm not speaking or writing with machines. I hope that I will never do that in my life, because it's really a nightmare. If you start to write only to a machine, what are you doing exactly? I'm not sure. If you're using a machine, it's to do things. Okay, so this is the writing scenario. It's very small, I think. Yes, sorry. I will explain you. What we were doing until end of October is today we were double writing. We have a double writing because of the kind of decision we are making with people. So we want to be sure about what we are doing. We have two independent writing with two humans. So now what we are doing is to deal with an automation, an automatic writing, and a human is still independent. If the levels are more or less the same, we are making the decision. In case of discrepancy, we are not using the machine. We are asking the human to write, to have double writing for the candidates. I'm not sure that this is a good decision for the candidates, but it's what we are called to do. Because last year, at the beginning of this year, the European authorities decided to publish 1,000 pages to organize the use of AI. 1,000 pages. Nobody was able to read these 1,000 pages. So what the civil servants at the European level have done is to publish an abstract about 200 pages. Okay? The main issue is that in Europe it seems that the machine is bad. Be aware, the machine is bad. In Canada, in the United States, when we are speaking about bias analysis, what we are doing is to put together the machine and the human. You don't want bias with the machine and you don't want bias with the human. So we are putting the machine and the human at the same level to protect the user. But in Europe, until now, what we are doing is to say that you have an issue if you are using the automation. It's probably the case for many things, but not everything. So be aware about that. Yes. So to find our solution, what we have done is to use a corpus of tasks, of text of our candidates. It's about 155,000 candidates and more or less 500,000 tasks for our candidates. So, quickly, what you are saying is that with the machine you really need big data. It's just impossible to deal with a small amount of data. It's really what you have to do. Why? Because the world of assessment is not a perfect world. what is happening is that in some cases it's very difficult to rate the performance of a candidate. The duty of a candidate is not to give you a perfect task, just something that is in your dreams. The candidate is writing exactly what you are expecting to identify the A2 level. It's never like that. So that's why you need a lot of performances, because in some cases it's not easy, and you have the issue of the candidate between two levels, and it's very difficult to decide where is exactly the candidate. If I have my feet in France and the other feet in Germany, I'm really not sure where I'm in the space. I am in France, in Germany, I don't want nobody to cut me, and probably I don't have a good answer to the people asking me in which country are you? I don't have no idea. Okay. What we have done is to build a corpus with the idea that we have to get the maximum of diversity. Because what we want is a model able to write any kind of candidates. For our exams, we have 200 nationalities, more or less 200 different mother tongues. We are never sure about what it is mother tongues, but it's the idea. We have very different languages, and we need a good representation of the CFR level. So we have to take into account everything and the gender balance between men and women, because we want this model to be able to write any kind of candidates. Okay, when we developed a model, the question was how to rate the efficiency of the model. So what we have done is to what we have done is to develop gold corpus, what we call the reference corpus. It's a selection of 1,000 class, more or less, rated by rated by 55 raters. And admin, every task has been rated by 9 humans. Do you remember what are doing the humans? The humans are making errors. That's why we are so creative, we are so fascinating people. But not when we are raters. We are just the nightmare of the candidates. So, to avoid any kind of issues with the error, what we have done is to build a corpus with a lot of rating. What we get at the end of the day, it's a calibration with all these performances on rater and a consensus. We know with this corpus, we know where is the consensus between the people. Okay, and to be in position to make decisions with this reference corpus, we have selected performance again to have a very good representation of the diversity of our candidates. Okay, so we use camembert not because it's cheese, but because probably, I don't know if you're aware about that, but LLM for generative AI are very bad for classification tasks. Okay? All serious research published until now are saying the same thing. Claude, ChatGPT, 4, Turbo, they are all very bad for classification tasks. What you get, I'm sorry to say something like that, it's not offensive, please, what you get is the expertise of a teacher to rate the students in the classroom. But you are not at the level that you need, like for a very high-stake exam, okay? So definitely we cannot choose a generative model. Why? With a generative model, what you are doing is to make a prediction of the next word. With this model, with BERT, B is for bi-directional. What you're doing with BERT, it's like to see you're seeing the sky, and you want to understand the relationship between the stars. It's what you're doing with BERT. The model learns the relationship between the words, before and after. So you have a real language model. That's the only difference that you have with a generative AI model, because you are just it's a production bridge. So we use this model because the corpus was in French. It works. And this is the model we are using. You have the text, the 27,000 text. It's for the fine-tuning. We are not training the model. The model is already trained with this huge corpus of French text. But what we have done is to fine-tune the model with these 27,000 tasks. And we had a set of 48 linguistic variables. Why we have done that? It's because using a deep learning model, it's not really safe to be sure that you are linking your results with the construct of your examination. So basically, we want to see a link between what the rater usually are doing with the performance and what the model is doing. And the model learns with this text and these variables. Okay, here you have some results. So just to let you know that we are using like between 20 and 30 different statistic indices to make sure that the model is really working and that the level of reliability is really what you need. So it's very restrictive. You have to demonstrate that this is working. It's so the level of accuracy needed is so high that now our model, the name is Fidelia. Fidelia is our best rater. We don't have a human who is able to be as good as the model. So it's very important to understand that. Okay. What we are doing now, during the last month, what we have done is to work more with the fairness, with our approach of fairness. Why are we doing that? At the beginning of the project, the question was, it is working or not? Can we make an estimation of the level of a candidate with such a deep learning model? The answer is clearly yes. So now we have to understand how to use this model. So for example, what we have done is to work on the accessibility, the universal design, and fairness as a process. So, do you remember? We think that we are not perfect. We are never in position to claim that our job is just finished. It's not happening. We have still issues. We have still something to do. So if you love the kind of job where you are pretty happy about what you have done, it's not exactly what we are doing. What we are doing is to identify areas of improvement on a daily basis. and it's what we are doing. So, for example, what we plan now is to put more tasks to increase the level of diversity. Because, for example, with a language, with some African language, we have only 5 candidates in our sample. So probably it's not enough. We have to increase the number of performances for these languages to be sure that we are putting really diverse things in the model and to get a better result for any kind of candidates. What we have done is to deal with bias analysis, and we have different kind of procedure to do that, and we have what we have found is that we don't have huge bias. It's pretty logical. Something fascinating for me is that thousands of researchers during the last 2 years were researching the bias of ChatGPT. Okay, fine. In my field, with language testing, there is no test at all with a gender bias. It's never happening because the people are not writing the test for that. What you find is some items. You have some issues with some item. Some items can be biased with a gender, but never a test. It's just impossible. You have to do it. You have to claim that you are bringing a test to discriminate people, but it's never happening. So it's really not the point. Probably what you have to do now is to be aware that the writing skills are not the same for the oldest candidates and the younger candidates. Probably we have to check it seriously because it's something that we are saying now. We have a real issue because with young candidates, we are not so accurate. So it starts to be more difficult for us to give a result to the youngest candidates. And it's probably because their skills are not the same than the people who are at 50 or 60 years. So we have to be really careful about that. What you have to bear in mind is that artificial intelligence is just it is just a prediction of the past. What you are doing is to use a corpus. The corpus is just the past. You don't have in your corpus what the candidate will write in the next round of 10 years. So what you have to do is to refine your model on a regular basis. You have to increase the number of performances, and you have to take very seriously that, do you think that it's a good idea to have in your sample performances text written by people about 80 years, 19 years, about 50 years ago, because it's what will happen. So really you have to take care about that, because nobody is speaking about that. People think that ChatGPT is some kind of magic thing. But if you're not aware about this issue, you're probably going in a very wrong direction. You cannot predict the future knowledge. And one of the other issues that we have now is that not everything is in the data. If you think that you just have to ask LLM because you have all the knowledge, you're claiming that all the knowledge is in the LLM. It cannot happen. It's just impossible. So you have to take care about that. And definitely for us, the automated writing system should mainly be used to assist the human to achieve a better level of accuracy and nothing else. So what we are doing is to use a system to make sure that the writer was accurate. We have the same results, so we don't have to claim that we have an issue. It's just the opposite. Probably we are doing the right thing, but we will never use the automated writing alone because it's not appropriate. You need this double writing to be sure that you're still online with what you're doing. If we see in the future that the accuracy decrease, it's probably because we have an issue with this model and we have to retrain this model. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Vincent. Yeah, over to you.
Of course, it doesn't work. I'll just move this way, maybe.
Yeah.
The microphone.
The microphone. Okay. Oh, now it's. Okay. Well, thank you for being here, and thanks to everyone for inviting me. What I will talk about is I will be a bit brief and quicker. I will talk about how we at the British Council view AI and maybe the future. And I will give you 2 examples of how we have implemented AI and another example of what we're currently working on. So if you can move to the next slide. Okay. Yeah, this one. Okay. Oh, very small. Okay. Anyway. So I mean, we know that, and we've had wonderful conversations yesterday, and we are following AI, and we do know that in the context of teaching, learning, and assessment, it can push boundaries, and possibly it can create different solutions which are personalized, engaging, and efficient for our learners. So the British Council has quite a long history of innovation in language assessment, from the introduction of gramophones and speaking tests in the 40s to the design and development of the aptitude testing system just over a decade ago. So we're quite positive and enthusiastic about trying to develop new solutions for our learners in teaching, learning, and assessment for the next decades. So our approach, unfortunately that's a bit small, you can't see it, but we advocate for human-centered AI integration in English language education, where we prioritize learner needs over technological capabilities. Technology should enhance, not replace, proven teaching and assessment approaches. And while AI transforms education rapidly, we believe that organizations must adopt strategic approaches that balance innovation with established educational principles. At the British Council, we see the whole process of language education as a single integrated system, which is the comprehensive learning system. It has 3 elements. There's the curriculum, where we have all the teaching materials and the construct that our learners are trying to learn. Then we have the delivery system, which encompasses everything that goes behind test delivery, and the assessment, including formative and summative assessment. So AI has the possibilities to impact significantly all 3 elements of the COC. So in keeping with the ethical principles, we should recognize that it's the responsibility of individuals and organizations to design and implement AI tools so that they can increase opportunities and access education. We believe in a few foundations for success, which you can see on the board. The first one is AI literacy, which we have all talked about, and Vincent just mentioned that. It empowers stakeholders to make informed decisions about AI tools and adoptions. Expertise and collaboration. These are essential for optimal results in AI implementation. Responsible use comes next, which means prioritizing user safety, privacy, and ethical standards. And of course, human leadership and oversight. It ensures AI models align with educational needs and values. Next one. So AI certainly has the potential to develop different kinds of tools in the educational context. However, we believe in an approach which we've labeled ethics by design, and the approach sits on these main principles in this ethical framework that we've identified at the British Council. The first one is respect for human agency. Human beings must be respected to make their own decisions and carry out their actions. There are also fundamental rights behind this, such as autonomy, dignity, and freedom. Privacy and data governance. People have the right to privacy and data protection, and these must be respected at all times. Fairness. People should be given equal rights and opportunities and should not be advantaged or disadvantaged. Individual, social, and environmental well-being. So AI systems should contribute to and not harm individual, social, and environmental well-being. Transparency. The purpose, inputs, and operations of AI programs should be knowable and understandable to its stakeholders. And the last one is accountability and oversight. So we should be able to understand, supervise, and also control the design and operation of AI systems and the outputs that we get from the development of these systems. So inclusion and accessibility, this also falls within our framework. AI is both scalable to large numbers of learners, as we know, but it's adaptable to individual needs. We've talked about personalization, differentiation, and so on. But we need to be careful with AI-powered applications to make sure that we don't widen the digital gap that we know currently exists. So these systems that we develop should be designed in a way that actually try to narrow these digital divides. And also we need to increase the opportunity for full diversity of international learners, particularly those with different disabilities. Thank you. So visions for the future, I mean, it's quite generous, basically what I said. We need to ensure that we are acknowledging the importance of AI, because even yesterday in our work groups, and as we said, it's here, it's not coming, it's not a will, it's the present tense, it's here. So we need to acknowledge it. And we believe that we should embrace it and work with it. So these new technologies are shaping the future of education. The question is, how are we going to work with various experts in AI and assessment, including at the British Council we have the English Language Research Group, which is led by Professor Barry O'Sullivan, which Vincent knows and has worked with. And we do believe that we can make a difference as experts in the field and make sure that the systems that we develop are mainly ethical, but all these other principles that I mentioned. So the next one. Okay. So this is just a very quick keyword, basically everything that I just said in terms of focusing on learner needs. We're not trying to replace people. We want them to make sure that they're working with the technology and they understand And again, in terms of collaborating, we're talking about ethical and inclusive approaches. Okay, so these are two examples that I said I would mention. The first one is British Council Primary English Test, which, yeah, unfortunately we can't really see this. It was a test designed and developed by the British Council for young learners ages 9 to 12, which uses AI in scoring, speaking and writing. And it is the first of its kind in the field. I was very much heavily involved in the development. We started developing during COVID, but then we managed to make it happen. We had a field test phase in 2022 where we tested more than 2,000 test takers from 23 countries and 6 continents. So the data was quite rich. We had 14 human raters who rated, double and triple rated over 55,000 spoken and written responses. Then we went through multiple statistical analysis. We had satisfactory performance by the AI models. And last year we had beta pilots, and Italy was one of the countries. Italy, South Korea, and Colombia. We had 13 schools and 100% test completion. And just a little bit over a year ago, in October of 2023, is when we launched the primary English test. And the next slide is just a very short, it's a 1-minute video, which gives you a quick idea of what the test looks like. Is just the second example, something that we're working on at the British Council, which is, it's a dialogue system for goal-oriented tasks. It's basically building a platform to practice speaking skills. I'm just going to kind of like read these, which is innovative, multimodal, interactive, natural, and adaptive. And I just want to point out under each of these characteristics a few challenges, solutions, and outcomes. So under innovative, we're trying to create new tasks and constructs. One of the challenges, there was no initial data to train the required assessment models. The solution was to use an LLM for assessment, and the outcome was that LLMs are vague and not as consistent or reliable as human raters, as we know. Multimodal, the challenge was to create text, speech, images, and videos. The solution was to use Gen AI tools. The outcome, generating high-quality content requires good prompting engineering skills and many iterations. Another challenge for multimodal, accurate ASR for non-native speakers. The solution uses state-of-the-art ASR service, and the outcome, transcriptions are not accurately punctuated and require a lot of post-processing. For interactive, the challenge, generate multiple bots that can successfully interact with the user and with one another. Again, the solution is to use an LLM, defining multiple agents and personas. And the outcome, it looks promising, but again, it requires extensive testing. For natural, ensure conversations stay on topic and are limited to the input material. This was the challenge. The solution was careful prompt engineering and guardrails. And the outcome, Now conversations are staying on track. And in terms of natural turn taking, the challenge was the difficulty detecting end of turns and text-to-speech latency, which makes conversation sound unnatural. The solution was to tweak the end of turn pauses threshold. And the outcome, there's moderate improvement in turn taking, but interruptions are still not possible. They're too complex. And for the adaptive nature of it, the challenge is to embed an adaptive mechanism into dialogue generation. The solution may be dynamic prompting, and the outcome is unknown yet. So we still yet to see it. The next slide gives you just a few screenshots of how the system looks. And again, this is work in process. It's something that we can share with external stakeholders for now, but it's just another example to give you an idea of what we're doing at the British Council and how we are approaching AI. And that's me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alice, again. Yeah, so now we'll get the questions. Yeah. Is there anyone who would like to start? Skip. Oh, yes. Sorry.
It's only on
There is another question there.
Adriana, if you could just reformulate the question.
Okay, yes, of course. Mm-hmm. Jose?
George.
If it's still the case for our Cambridge exams, you've got a schools version for younger learners. And it just fascinated me what you were saying about feeding the corpus with entries from older and younger learners and the language use being different. With your suite of exams, is there like a schools version for younger candidates as well? So do you feed the corpus differently for those assessments according to group, or is it still the whole?
Does anyone, did you get the question? Yeah, okay, that's fine. Okay, no, just fine, just, yeah.
Okay. For TCF, we just have adults, but it should be the case for DELF definitely. And really, it's something that we have to take in account because it's concrete. We can see that really the word to write is not the same. So, but the main issue is the dynamic thing, because when you ask someone to pass a TCF, they have 20 years. It's about 25 years. It's not changing a lot because the migration for people, it's about between 20 and 30. So basically we have the same kind of candidates, but we have to be aware that our candidates now are from the past, and it's changing a lot. And you know, with, for example, the way to see the learning of the children, it's changing a lot. So we are never sure that the skills are given by the school or by what the people are doing at home.
Do you think then that in the future it might change the way you test, it might change the format of the exam as well as the data that you're getting?
Yes, that's why it's a real asset, for example, to deal with humans. The beautiful thing with humans is that with small data, you learn a lot. If I want to train a writer with 27,000 tasks, I think that this writer will tell me that you're just a crazy man. What are you doing? I don't want to read such an amount of tasks. Our writers, we are training them with more or less 20, 30 tasks. That's it. They learn how to assess with few tasks. So what is very good for us is to follow with the human rating, because the teachers, they are teachers mainly, they are in touch with the learners, and they are able to understand, because when you have a descriptor in the CF4 for B1, it's always the same descriptors, but the language that you get is not always the same kind of language. For example, argumentation start not to be argumentation if not a collection of opinion. And when you read the text of your candidate, you discover that it's harder for them to make an argumentation. So you just have to adjust what you are speaking about, what is reasonable to ask for. And humans are just perfect to do that, because usually you find the way to go with something that is really fair for the candidate, because what can you do? You cannot teach or train everybody, so you have to adjust what you're doing.
Thank you. I think I had seen a hand up here. No? Well, I'll have some questions. Yeah. Both of you mentioned fairness in your presentation. Yeah. So how do you believe this can be actually considered fully, as tools in general are still controlled by humans? And because of that, there might be biased judgment, choices, and influence in general. How do you see this?
How can the tools be fair?
Yes,
basically?
how can they be fair if the corpus is coming and the input is given by humans? And we all have our background, yeah, so inevitably there will be judgment here and there somehow.
I think Vincent had a good point when he started. I mean, as humans, we're not perfect. We are flawed. I mean, I was an exams rater, but very high stakes international exam in speaking and writing. And yes, there are checks and balances for raters, as you were saying, and you get trained and all the time. But at the end of the day, we do have our biases. It's just inevitable. That's just who we are as humans. And I think, I mean, for me, it's interesting when people say, oh, but the systems are biased. Well, of course they are, because they were trained by humans, and humans are not perfect. Now, I don't know, and I'll be curious to see what Vincent thinks, but I would think that the more we train them, and we have diversity in the training data, which is also what you showed in your example, what we've tried to do also, then that would minimize the bias. I don't think it would remove it.
No, you're never able to remove everything. Last week I was in Turkey.
No, the new pronunciation.
We don't have to say Turkey now. So, and we have a presentation from Barry Sullivan speaking about the myth of validation. And we have a lot of people speaking now about EDI. It's equality, diversity, inclusion. You have some variation, something that I really like. It's named JEDI.
Justice.
JEDI is justice, equity, diversity, inclusion. And you have other people claiming that, oh, I'm not confident with equality, I prefer equity. Okay. It's very fascinating for me, because validation is a myth in my field, because you're never getting the point. It's a never-ending process. But justice, fairness is probably the same. You're never sure. Fairness, What you can do is to avoid what people are doing for discriminating the other ones. We fully understand that. We know this kind of mechanism, but we have to be honest. We are not able to fix everything. It's not like that. So I think that what we have to take seriously in account is that the risk, the major risk now, is to think that language, it's about a corpus. When you are writing a candidate, what you are doing is to write the pragmatic dimension of the speaking and the writing. You're not saying that what is doing the candidate is just to produce language. It's more than language. You're speaking to someone, you want to do something. It's not only to do what LLM is doing. Please write me a text of 500 words. It's just texting, it's not languaging. So we have to be aware about these kind of things because these tools, the AI tool, are a good way to have a double check and to come with another purpose style. So we can check what the candidate was saying because it's something that a writer is not able to do. We are not analytical at all. If you are using some rating scale, you know that if you have more than 5 different criteria, you will reproduce the level that you find for your candidates. If you have a rating scale with 10 criteria, you need another brain because your brain is not able to deal with that. You are not able to distinguish many dimensions in the writing or speaking of the people. And it's really an asset as a human. We are able to have this holistic point of view. An artificial intelligence is not able to produce an holistic judgment about a candidate. What you have, it's a very analytical thing. Our brain is not using a lot of power energy. People dealing with artificial intelligence are claiming now that they will build new nuclear plants because of the need of energy. You need all this energy because it's very analytical. So you just have to accept the idea that you're assessing something different. And it's what you call in science triangulation. You get different kind of information.
Thank you. And since you mentioned EDI, yeah, and I saw that was body language when you did very, very transparently, yeah. How do you think, or what do you think is the role of government to guarantee equality, diversity, and inclusion when it comes to assessing, or if they have any, yeah, more than writing a manual of 1,000 pages, as you mentioned, Vincent?
As a test provider, we have our duties.
Yes.
Our duties is to analyze the data and to give information to the authorities, because our authorities, they are not aware about what is happening. If you are not giving the right level of information to your authorities, they are not aware about what is happening. But what we are facing is that we are not in position to go with justice. It's not our job at all. So this is the job of the policy makers. And it's what they have to do. So they don't have, for example, to use our tests for purposes that are not fitting what our examinations are doing. I will give just an example. What we are doing with migration purposes is to identify a level. do you think that really there is a level to be French? I'm not sure about that. What does it mean? A French with a A2 level is not French. I know a lot of French in Africa, but I'm not speaking French at all. They are French. So the criteria is not to be French. It's what this society decide as a justice point. Where is the level needed for the people for inclusion? That's it. And it's probably the question, because you have a symbolic power of a test. It's what the policymakers are dealing with. We are not the one dealing with that. But what they are doing is to use our examination in a symbolic way. So there is no answer, really, between the language level and your citizenship. But there is a level between your language level and the inclusion of the people. And it's what you have to do. So in our understanding as a public body, as a civil servant, our duty is to really to give all the information and to be sure that you're putting the policymakers in the right position to make decisions. And their job is to make this decision.
I see. Thank you, Vincent. Any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, I was just thinking when Vincent was, so I mean, we are a global organization, so we work with hundreds of governments around the world, and I think it's difficult. It's really what you mentioned, it really comes down to policymakers, and if they're not willing to listen to the experts and work with the experts, sometimes there isn't much you can do. I mean, you can raise awareness as an institution, which is what we try to do, but influencing policymakers, I find that quite difficult, and it really depends on the country. Sometimes it's cultural. It's interesting also what you said. I just remembered at one of the assessment conferences, I think it was in Madrid last year, the citizenship exams. It's quite interesting because there was a whole presentation how up until recently, and it was focused on Europe, the presentation, a lot of countries did not have a requirement for citizenship. So let's say you move to a country, and then after certain years, whatever the requirements are, 5 or 10, then you become a citizen. And many countries did not have a language requirement. And what's happening over the past, maybe, I don't even think 10, maybe even less than that, years, is a lot of countries in Europe, not only are they introducing citizenship language level exams, but they also asking for something like a B2 level, which is quite high. And the presentation was quite interesting, made me think about what you said. I mean, if you have different immigrants and different groups moving to a country who might not have the resources to improve their language skills, how do you get to a B2 level? I mean, I live in Spain, and my Spanish level is definitely not B2, and I have resources. I mean, I can go to language classes, and I'm making an effort. But if you have marginalized groups, so it's interesting. And then what you said, I mean, where's the justice and the fairness in this type of exams, for example?
You have a very good example for the taxi drivers. In some countries, they start to ask for B2 level for a taxi driver. And what is happening is that the tests are really well designed. There is no issue with the tests. They have bias analysis for everything. They have no real issue with their exams. The issue is the use of the test. So what you have to do is to explain to the authorities that with B2, you're speaking about someone who is able to study in a country. You have to go with basic things like it's true for most of the foreign languages in Europe. B2 is the level of language of many teachers for
Yeah.
language
True.
teaching in Europe.
Yes.
So you're asking B2 for a taxi driver. Do you really need this taxi driver to be very skilled, to speak very seriously? Or are you speaking about someone who is making an argumentation in the
No.
taxi? So it's what we have to do. We have really to make, because it's not easy for the policymakers to really understand what is happening. We discover, because we are doing that now in Europe, we discover that in many cases it's because the policymakers are not aware about these levels. They find it very beautiful to ask for B2. We will have better taxi drivers in Europe, you know?
Yeah.
But when you explain the reality, it starts to be very different. And because you're speaking about exclusion of many people, it's the same, for example, for citizenship. You know, like me, what is the idea now in Europe with the citizenship and naturalization. But we all know that the policymakers now are facing issues with people who don't have a good opportunity to be included in their society. And they start to deal with new issues. So what we have to do is always to promote a better use of our examinations. But it's normal, it's a democratic mechanism. It's good to know that we are not these people. In France Éducation Internationale, our job is to design examinations. It's not to manage the policy of our country. And for that, it's a real political thing. You have election for that. So I really prefer.
Yes, I think I agree with you that having clear roles, just contributes to the whole outcome of this and to policy making, right? Some people have to be consulted, others have to be audited, and the role of our job, what we do in our job is not exactly to take these decisions, but to offer the mechanisms and the tools for the decision makers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And not to let hidden things, because it was happening. The test provider is not speaking. You're just dealing with your examination.
Yeah.
You don't have any kind of analysis.
Yeah.
If you're doing that, it's just bad for everybody.
So we are back to the bias conversation. Yes.
Your duty is to give information.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much, Handels. Thank you very much, Vincent.
Thank you.
Yeah, previously for the meetings and for today. Thank you very much, British Council and France Education, for inviting us and for everybody's time to be here today. Thank you.